Okay guys, back with the Outer Circle, and a couple of little things Heresy today. So first of all, last chance to buy. This will be the biggest last chance to buy culling we've had in quite a long time. Obviously we had some really bad ones there where several hundred products were removed. And this time out we're losing quite a few vehicles, dreadnoughts, weapon types, etc, etc. All of that's fine because we know that, well, we've seen Plastic Rhino, we've seen Plastic Spartan, we can assume Plastic Leviathan, Plastic Sicaran, obviously new Plastic Contemptor Dreadnought, so no real worries to be had here because I'm sure a lot of the stuff we're seeing will go to plastic. Same with the Mark 6 Space Marines that people have had the choice of using in Horus Heresy for years. These particular sets of armor have been around in one form or another since about 2010, 2011, because they brought out a sort of armor through the ranges type thing where they brought out Mark 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 at Forge World. And the original variant was like 2-leg types, a couple of arms, and relatively the same helmets and chests, and then they went to a version called Legion, Mark blah 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 armor. In this case, this is the Legion Mark 6. And when they went to the Legion version, they gave a couple of additional leg types. Anyway, they've now reached the end of their tenure with plastic beakies coming, and therefore they're going the way of the dodo. But the Black Books, the famous Black Books from Forge World, Inferno, Extermination, Betrayal, Tempest, Massacre, Malevolence, etc, etc. With the exception of Malevolence, they've all been fantastic books, especially the background, the artwork, all that kind of stuff, the fleshing out of the different legions and their role in the Great Crusade, and then onto the Horus Heresy. Awesome stuff, and seeing them go, and knowing from hard-earned experience that Games Workshop will not replicate what has been done with these books. They just don't have it in them. Is a real shame because, well, take a look at their campaign books if you don't believe me on that front. Your Warzone Fenris, okay, your Gathering Storm, they're a pale imitation of one of these books. So knowing that the Black Books are on their way out and they're really just coffee table books, that's a shame. For those who want to play old school Horus Heresy, maybe don't want to move to the new system, I would strongly advise getting in and getting the books now, because once they're gone, they're gone. They're not going to do a reprint, they're not going to bring them back out or reissue them. Just like the awesome Forge World Masterclass books, for example, I have all 3 of the Masterclass books. 1 and 2 are fantastic. The third one was a Horus Heresy Masterclass book, and that thing was slapped together in about 45 seconds, and is not so great, but you know what? It's better than a kick in the teeth, right? All the old Imperial Armor volumes, you know, once these things are gone, you're never going to see them again, unless someone is nice enough to upload them as PDFs online. So, yeah. So something else that's been happening is obviously the plastics in Mark 3, Heroes, those kind of things. A lot of those have been disappearing, namely the Mark 3 and 4 Power Armor and the Cataphractii and Tartarus Terminator Armor. My theory, and it's just that, it's a theory, I've got no proof, is that they are not getting rid of them, they are keeping them around, but what they're going to do is they're going to change the box art for those armor types to be more like the Fafnir Ran and Dominion Zephyr boxes. So there'll be those black Horus Heresy branded boxes rather than the 40k Tactical Squad style box that they're in now. I've got no proof of this, that's just my theory or my assumption as to what they're going to do. I don't see them retooling, paying for new dies to increase the scale on these Marines by 1 or 2 millimeters in height. I highly, highly doubt they're doing that. I think the new scale change on the new beakies is pointless when you have so many other miniatures around them that are not going to be in that scale. And pointlessly so because I think these guys are not going to change. I expect them to be sold back to us in a month or two's time, probably June. They'll be fully finished with the reboxing, and these guys will be hitting the shelves again. With the emphasis being, though, on the beakies, because that's where all the promo artwork is, and that's where the community is being led, for better or worse. Again, you had the option of all these years, guys, of using these resin ones. You chose not to. You chose other armor marks. So clearly things like this squad hold a lot of sentimentality for people, so I doubt they're going to be silly enough to not sell these models to you going forward. And again, I can only wish that they re-release something like Betrayal at Kelth or Burning Prospero boxes. Then, of course, let's think through at the moment. I'm getting a lot of questions from people, and this is a side topic, about what to do knowing there's a new edition coming and wanting to put their feet into the Horus Heresy. Well, the first thing I'll say is don't be hasty, because you don't know what the new box set's going to be priced at or what they're going to contain. Some of them might be excellent value, at least in comparison to the models being sold as individual kits. We found this with the Betrayal at Kelth and the Burning at Prospero. If you want to buy the Burning at Prospero or the Betrayal at Kelth, I think Betrayal at Kelth was something like 250 Australian or 270 Australian. You got 3 Mark IV tactical squads and a squad of Cataphractic Terminators, a Plastic Contemptor, and 2 characters. To buy all of that individually was not quite, but almost double the price. So if they bring out something of roughly similar worth, like maybe they bring out a box which is 30 beaky tactical marines, squad of Terminators, and a new and much improved Plastic Contemptor. I mean, the only thing you can do is improve from what they had. If they do that, they bring it in around the same price point, 270-ish. Fine, good, great, sold. If they bring out, though, the plastic beakies, and it's like 30 of them, 5 Terminators, that Plastic Contemptor, and it's in the 300s, too expensive, just flat out. They're on the wrong side of pricing, okay? So that's where the drumming up of hype and the trying to get the community to buy their stuff really kicks into high gear, because making things in plastic is not impetus enough on its own to sell your system. Okay, if they release the plastic Spartan and it is significantly more expensive as an individual kit than a plastic Land Raider in current 40k, then it is too expensive. I had an ad, maybe I'll slap it on screen now or something, I don't know, that I came across the other day. And it's the Triple Rhinos kit. Now, it's a little bit smaller than the current Rhino. Anyone who's handled one knows this. But that Rhino kit, you could buy 3 of them for £10. By the time you scale for inflation, you could have gotten the 3 of them for less than you can buy a single Rhino for today. And not to go into too much of a crazy pricing debacle here, because we all know that I'm right and they're wrong when it comes to the reasons why Games Workshop prices so expensively. There's literally a dozen videos to prove the point. It's a problem because, in my mind, I don't care, I can afford the pricing. But you know who can't? People trying to get into the hobby. And that's what terrifies me about that pricing. So they've got to be really on the ball with how they bring out this box set, because if they're wrong, it's very bad. Very bad. It's a bad deal. Everyone agrees it's a bad deal. It's the worst deal in the history of Games Workshop's deals. And yeah, I would seriously question the long-term health of the system if it is more expensive than it currently is in plastic. If you're paying equivalent prices to the resin stuff over at Forge World, then it's not going to survive as a system any more healthily than it is now. And all the expense and rejuvenation they're going into for the system will very much, it'll be like what they did with Middle-earth when they brought out the Pelennor Fields box. They go to all this trouble of, well, we're going to have a new starter box for the new game. And they get like a plastic Theoden miniature in there, and they use all the old sculpts that they had in 2002. Like, you know, same riders of Rohan, same Uruk-hai, and or whatever it might be, same orcs, plastic orcs that they've had for years. And you go, oh, why are you doing this? Like, you're not helping the game by doing this. You know, you want a sustainable product. Well, I fear for that for the Heresy, but anyway, to get back onto that main point I was attempting to make before I sidetracked myself with 5 minutes of rambling. If you want to get into this and you're committed to getting into it today and you don't care about what box sets they bring out down the future line, then it doesn't matter what faction you go for, you need to focus on your core troops choices and HQs. Because just like old Warhammer 40,000, this is a game that revolves around those units. No matter what army type you want or you want to build, you need to start with those building blocks. And even if you have an idea in mind like, hey, I want to play Auto Reductor Mechanicum, I want to play big tanks and siege artillery and such, don't build for that army from scratch. You need to buy a Tagmata Mechanicum force, a basic Mechanicum army that starts at the most simple units, and learn how to play those to get into the Horus Heresy. And if you know how to play those, then ignore me, because you're already in the game, you already understand the system, and you can do whatever you like. Same goes for Marine players. You may want to do a First Company Elite, all Justinian Terminators and Cataphracti Terminators and such, and you can make that list. But in order to really understand it, and to play the game well, you probably want to start with a more traditional list. So my advice is, for Marine players, the very first things you should be going out and buying: 2 tactical squads, a set of HQs or HQ choice, 1 or 2 5-man squads of Terminators, and then maybe a 3rd tactical squad that you can upgrade to either tactical support by giving them plasma guns, flamers, melter guns, whatever it might be, or turn them into a Legion heavy support squad, las cannons, missile launchers, whatever poison you choose for that. And then supplementing it with a couple of transport options, or a couple of tank options, or of course a Contemptor Dreadnought option. For Imperial Militia players, you should be going down the same sort of line as if you were trying to start a 5th edition Imperial Guard army. You want to be getting a lot of infantry, just bulk boxes of 20-man infantry squads. Get at least 2 or 3 of those. A commander for the force, maybe even a command squad to go with that commander. Again, there's a lot of options available. Like if I go over here onto Games Workshop's website, and I'll show some of these things off because that will probably help. So you could get, say, 3 of the Start Collecting Astra Militarum box. That there, okay, the commissars aren't going to be too useful, but you might want to use them as squad sergeants or something. But 3 Lehman Russes, there's your first vehicle squadron. The 3 heavy weapons teams, there's your first heavy weapon team. Okay, the 3 squads of 10, I believe it is, Cadians on foot. There's your first 3 basic minor troops choices if you're going veterans, or maybe you can combine them together to go for something like conscripts. You could do the same thing. You could go for the Cadia Defense Force bundle here, the $270 one. Buy 2 of that, $500. You've got a 2 Lehman Russ squadron, 2 sets of 3 heavy weapons, 2 command squads, which, okay, 2 command squads, a little excessive, but it'll give you some extra special weapons and such to make the squad you really need. You'll get a couple of Chimerae, which you can use with some very subtle conversion to represent something like your Aurochses, for example, in the Horus Heresy. And your basic 20-man squad of infantry there obviously will perform the function of either conscripts or veterans. You just may have to get some special weapon upgrades. So those are the sort of things you should be looking at if you are going down that route. If you are going down the Mechanicum route, I'd probably be looking at something like the Tech Priest Manipulus is fine, but I was thinking more Engine Seer or probably the Tech Priest Dominus. The Dominus is the better choice in my opinion. Get one of him in plastic, and then it's all about your basic troops. I'd ignore the Scutari because Scutari are sort of a different tier of unit in 30k. And in Horus Heresy, I'd be looking at going to, if I bring them up, it's a very slow website today, unfortunately. Damn, Australian internet is bad. Mechanicum, come on. There we go. Okay. So get yourself one of those tech priests, then come over onto Forge World, get 2 to 3 squads of Mechanicum Thalax. Thalax are just great all-rounders. You can get minimum squads of 3, big squads of 9. So if you buy 3 sets of Mechanicum Thalax, you can either make 1 big squad of 9, 3 small squads of 3. You know, it gives you some variety, and you're not spending a fortune to do so. You could also supplement those Thalax with different weapon options, such as Photon Thruster or Phase Plasma Fusils. So probably worth deciding beforehand which of those special weapons appeals to you most, and buying a couple of these sets instead. You could also, you take a multi-melter as another option. Be looking at something like Tech Thralls. So Tech Thralls with Lazlox is perfectly fine. Yeah, $97, not the cheapest thing in the world. But they make good scoring bodies on the table, compared to the Silax, which are also another viable troops choice, but are nowhere near as good as just taking bulk Tech Thralls with their little 6+ feel no pains and such built in. Castellax, of course, squad of 3 Castellax with Darkfire is never going to let you down, but even just Castellax with bolt cannons, or more pattern bolt cannons, that is, or maybe a multi-melter, perfectly fine. You can take the Magos Macrotech Engine Seer with his Servo Automata. He'll fill out an entire HQ role with his Servitors, which is handy. Myrmidons I'd tend to avoid early on in Mechanicum. And I'd probably get some Vorax in there just for something that can cross territory quickly. Thanatars can come later. Avoid the Kallax for the time being. See what 2.0 does if it improves it. And then maybe look at something like a Voltarax or 2 for some decent anti-tank options. Especially if 2.0 releases as the leaks currently are, because Haywire is going to be king shit. That's what I'd be doing with Mechanicum. Then, of course, you've got Solar Auxilia. So, Solar Auxilia, you really want to get yourself 1 or 2 las rifle sections, or you could even just bulk Valetarius Storm sections with Volkites. Valetarius Storm with Volkites, get a tactical command squad because they'll give you all the HQ sort of options you need. You don't need Charonite Ogrins. They're pretty cool when you get them into combat and such, but otherwise they're pretty hit and miss. I like the Carnodon, actually. It's just a very expensive option. But if you're playing Solar Auxilia, you're willing to spend that kind of money. So look at maybe 3 Dracosans with Demolisher Cannons, 3 squads of Valetarius, 2 maybe with Volkite, 1 with Power Axes. Get yourself a Tactical Command. Maybe stick Tactical Command in an Aurochs transport. Are there any? Yep, there's an Aurochs right there. Get yourself a squad of Carnodon battle tanks, and that'll give you some decent ranged tank. Like the Demolisher Cannons on the Dracosans will deal with squads of enemy Terminators and such, and Las Cannon equipped Carnodons will absolutely slaughter enemy tanks. And then maybe something like the Solar Auxilia, I'd probably go the Medusa over the Basilisk. Just Basilisks are really cool. Tables are never big enough to really get their money's worth out of Basilisks, though. Most tables, the Medusa perfectly suffices. So, there's that. You can also take Solar Auxilia, like Tech Priest type dudes, and unlock a whole bunch of those Automata. It's not worth it, in my opinion. Not for a beginner's army. You want to stick to simple options. So 3 Dracosans with Demolisher Cannons, 3 Carnodons, Auxilia Tactical Command in an Aurochs, and then get 1 Valetarius with Axes and 2 Valetarius with Volkites. Call it a day. That's your basic army right there. And supplement it with a assault-based sprinkling of heavy armor as required. Now, for Telons of the Emperor or such, that's a different kettle of fish again, because, well, it's mostly going on over Games Workshop. So the question is, do you want to go Custodes, or do you want to go for, say, do you want to go Custodes, or do you want to go for the Sisters of Silence? If it's the Sisters of Silence you want, then I don't think there's a viable way to start them with ease, apart from what I've suggested in sort of getting starter videos in the past. So they're two of the factions I would really avoid starting right now, going into 2.0. But yeah, apart from that, that is my opinions for the time being. I would only look at those sort of factions: Mechanicum, Solrogs, Militia, and Astartes. I would then go and look at something like Custodes, Knights, Sisters of Silence later on down the line. Demons of the Ruinstorm, don't even get me started. It is just a convoluted mess to do Demons of the Ruinstorm at the moment, so we'll avoid that for the time being, but my suggestion is just 3D print the hell out of that army, because it is very hard to find the appropriate miniatures for several of the factions to really fill out the roster. Like Nurgle, you can kind of do it. Khorne, you can kind of do it, but for Slaanesh and Tzeentch, you're absolutely pushing it uphill to try and get them to flesh out a full army using kits from Games Workshop. It's pretty much impossible. It's, we'll say, very improbable. Anyway, that's all from me. You've heard a diverse range of thoughts for the moment, and it's not all doom and gloom. I think there's some good stuff that's going to happen. Don't be depressed about all this stuff that's going last chance to buy, but do remember, the black books, they are one I would get depressed about, because you're going to miss them if you don't get one now. Anyway, back with the Outer Circle. See you all next time.